Namaste dosto, and a very warm welcome to all of you. Every few years, hundreds of millions of Indians head to the polls. It's this huge, incredible festival of democracy, right? But have you ever really stopped and thought about it? How does that one single vote of yours, that one button you press, how does it actually help form a government? Chaliye, let's figure this out together.
Okay, think about it like this. Imagine a game of cricket. The rule is simple, right? The team that scores the most runs wins. But what if we changed the rules? What if the rule was the team that hits the most sixes wins, even if their total score is lower? Suddenly, you could have a completely different winner. Well, elections are exactly like that. It's the rules of the game that decide who gets the power. And in India, those rules lead to some very, very interesting results.
All right, so here's our game plan for today. First, we'll talk about why these rules matter so much. Then we'll jump right into India's system, first past the post, or FPTP. After that, we'll check out the main alternative, proportional representation. Then we'll put them head-to-head, kind of like a showdown. We'll also see why India chose the system it did. And finally, I'll leave you with a big question to chew on. Ready? Chaliye, let's get into it.
So first things first, why even have all these rules? It's pretty simple, actually. Our Constitution laid out this whole framework to make sure every election is fair and, that everyone accepts the result. Without it, just imagine the chaos. It's this system that takes all the voices of 1 billion+ people and turns them into a stable, working government.
Okay, so what is India's system for the big elections? The Lok Sabha and the Vidhan Sabha. We use something called first past the post, or FPTP for short. The easiest way to get it is to just think of a simple running race. You have a bunch of runners, and the one who crosses that finish line first, well, they're the winner. That's it. It doesn't matter if they won by just a tiny bit or by a whole lot. First is first.
So to be a little more specific, FPTP means the candidate who gets the highest number of votes wins. And this is the most important part. They don't need a majority. A majority means more than 50% of the votes. Nope, they just need what's called a plurality, which just means getting more votes than anyone else. That's why you'll sometimes hear it called the plurality system. Same thing. So here's how it all breaks down, in 3 really simple steps. Step 1, the whole country is divided into 543 different areas, or constituencies, for the Lok Sabha. Step 2, when you go to vote, you cast your ballot for just one candidate in your area. And step 3, the candidate who gets the most votes in that constituency wins the seat. Sounds super straightforward, right? But, as you're about to see, this simple process can lead to some outcomes that are, well, pretty mind-boggling.
Okay, now this is where it gets really fascinating. Just look at these numbers from the 1984 election. The Congress Party, they got 48% of the total votes. Notice that less than half the country voted for them. But now look at the seats they won. 415 seats. That's a whopping 80% of the Lok Sabha. Now look over at the BJP. They got a respectable 7.4% of the votes nationwide. But how many seats did they get? Just 2. Only 2. Just let that sink in for a moment. With less than half the votes, one party ended up with 80% of the power. This, my friends, is the magic, and, for some, the major problem of the FPTP system.
So if FPTP can create these huge swings, what's the other option? Well, meet the main challenger, proportional representation, or PR. The whole idea behind PR is just one word: fairness. The philosophy is super simple. A party's share of seats in parliament should be, well, proportional to its share of the votes. So if a party gets, say, 10% of the votes, it should get around 10% of the seats. Makes sense, right?
Yeah, the name really says it all: proportional representation. Let's just quickly apply that idea to the 1984 election we just talked about. Remember the BJP got 7.4% of the vote? Well, under a PR system, they wouldn't have gotten just 2 seats. No way. They would have gotten something like 40 seats. Think about that. The exact same votes, but a completely different looking parliament.
Now, PR isn't just one single thing. It comes in a couple of different flavors. The 2 main ones are the list system, which is where you vote for a party, not a person, and the party then fills the seats it wins from a list of its own candidates. The other popular type is called the single transferable vote, or STV. This one's a bit different. You actually rank the candidates in the order you prefer them.
Okay, I know what you're thinking. A formula. Looks complicated, right? But honestly, the idea behind it is pretty simple. This formula is just a way to calculate the magic number, the number of votes a candidate needs to win. The whole point of the system is to make sure that almost no vote gets wasted. It does this by transferring extra votes from winning candidates or votes from losing candidates based on the preferences you marked. It's a really precise method. And a little fun fact for you, India actually uses this very system to elect the members of our Rajya Sabha.
All right, so we've met the two main contenders now. We have first past the post on one side and proportional representation on the other. So let's put them side by side. Think of this as the final showdown. It's a battle of simplicity versus fairness. This table really lays out the big trade-offs perfectly. With FPTP, what you get is simplicity. It's easy to understand, and you get a clear local representative, your MP or MLA. But it's definitely biased towards the big parties. Now with PR, you get what many would call fairness, especially for smaller parties. But it's more complex, and it often leads to coalition governments. So you see, it's a real question of what you value more. Do you want a stable, strong government, or do you want a parliament that is a perfect mirror of how every single person voted?
To see how this really works in the real world, let's look at this amazing example, the 2016 Tamil Nadu election. Under our current FTPP system, the AIADMK got just over 40% of the vote, and with that, they won a clear majority, 135 seats. Now, let's do a little thought experiment. What if we used a PR system with those exact same votes? Well, AIADMK would have only gotten around 95 seats, no majority there, and other parties, like the Congress, would have picked up about 15 seats. And what's the result of all that? You'd get a coalition government, not a single-party rule.
And this brings us to a really, really important question. When you see these big differences, you have to ask, why did the brilliant people who wrote our Constitution, why did they choose FPTP for India? This wasn't just a random pick. Trust me, there was a lot of deep thought and debate that went into this decision. You really have to try and put yourself in their shoes back in the late 1940s. For a brand new nation, a country so vast and so diverse, the founders were focused on four key things. First, simplicity. They needed a system that was easy for everyone to understand. Second, they really wanted stability. The last thing they wanted was weak governments that kept falling apart. Third, they wanted clear accountability, where you know exactly who your local MP is and who to go to with your problems. And finally, they felt this system would promote national unity by encouraging parties to appeal to a wide range of people, not just one small group.
So, okay, what would happen if we decided to switch to PR today? Well, we'd have to face some pretty big challenges. For one, the system is just more complex for voters to understand. There's also a very real risk of having unstable coalition governments all the time, which can lead to something called policy paralysis, where nothing gets done. You'd also lose that direct link to your local representative, because the focus shifts more to the party itself. And just think about the practical side, the administrative headache of running such a complex election for nearly 1 billion voters. It would be incredibly difficult and expensive. So, we've seen the trade-offs, right? FPTP, the system we have, really values stability and simplicity. PR, the alternative, values fairness and perfect representation. The truth is, there is no single perfect answer here. And that brings us to the most important question of all.
The first past the post system was chosen for a young India, an India that was facing a very specific set of challenges at that time. But India has changed so much since then. Our society, our politics, our voters, we've all evolved. So the big question that I want to leave you with is this. Is the system that was right for the India of the past still the best one for the India of today and for the India of tomorrow? What do you think is more important? A stable government or a perfectly representative one? There's no easy answer, but it's a question that every single one of us as citizens should really think about. Thank you for joining me.